Hello and welcome to the Pursuit of Possible podcast. I'm your host Luke, and in these episodes we'll be exploring different ways to overcome limiting beliefs so that we have the tools and resources to overcome adversity in our day-to-day lives. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to episode 4 of the Pursuit of Possible podcast. As you can see, if you're on YouTube, we're in a very special location today. And if you're on Spotify, I'm very sorry about the waves in the background, but I can't help but want to film in cool locations like this. We are at Gibson Steps in the Great Ocean Road. And I'm really excited today because I'm with a particular person who I actually sort of met online 5 years ago through the Yes Theory community, and we have been trying to meet up on so many different occasions throughout the last 5 years, and finally he decided to come to Australia, and so we met up. I've taken him to the Great Ocean Road, and now we're here filming a podcast together. So introducing this week's guest, Loyd Doron.
I don't know what to say.
It's like, what do I do?
What do I do?
No, it's a bit awkward. I'm still getting used to the intros and stuff.
Yeah.
Loyd is really inspiring to me. So he's a filmmaker and photographer based in the Philippines, but he actually just recently moved to, I almost said Melbourne, but he just recently moved to New Zealand to pursue a career in filmmaking, and it's really inspiring. I think particularly moving to a whole new country is just something quite intense, and I guess I'm just curious, man. Maybe just introduce with a bit of your story and sort of how you've come to be where you are now.
Yeah. So as you guys know, let's say it was a thank you for that wonderful introduction, Luke. And
Oh, good.
I'm Loyd Doron, and I'm originally from the Philippines, and I'm currently pursuing my passion, hopefully to further more and improve my skills and get into film industry more. So I decided to pursue it in the heart capital city of New Zealand, in Wellington. I'm currently studying Bachelor of Screen Arts in Wellington at the moment. So I have an extreme passion towards storytelling and filmmaking in general. So I love to tell stories. So.
Beautiful, man. What was it like growing up in the Philippines? Because I know, because I've been on a few sort of overseas trips myself recently, and one thing that really amazed me was how culture differentiates between place to place. And there are some places that literally don't even realize that filmmaking is a feasible career. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Philippines is one of those places. What was it like growing up, realizing that you loved filmmaking and that you wanted to pursue that as a career instead of a doctor or,
It was really quite challenging for me to pursue this passion because most especially if you're living in a small town island, it's just in a countryside small town, and not everyone would like to encourage you to pursue this creative passion. When I started it around 2016, when I started delving into filmmaking, learning things like that, it was kind of hard for me because I don't know what to do. There's not a lot of resources, and it might be a lot better if you're living in a big cities like Manila or Cebu cities, because they're pretty much open about the creative passion. But it was really quite challenging for me because I don't know how to find my people, my tribe. It was just pretty much me doing my own stuff in my small town. So I was just kind of going with the flow, and YouTube really helped me a lot. Meeting this fellow creatives online community, and pretty much how we met. It's just so crazy, the wonders of technology, how it's helping us to get out there and meet these creative people. And
it's so true. I feel like we've never lived in a time where it's been so accessible to have a career in anything, because I think honestly social media has given us access to a resource where we literally can make a career out of anything, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's mentoring, and it's starting to rain, which is I'm personally okay. How are you? Okay?
Yeah, I'm totally
You're okay with the rain? All right, hopefully the camera's okay, but we should be fine. Let's just battle it out right now. But I think what's amazing about your story is I remember when we first connected online, and at that point you were still sort of finding your way in the film industry, and I think you still are now. I think we're all, as creatives, we're still trying to find what the next step is for us and which direction we want to go in. I know that you made a few short films and you entered it into festivals, and that's actually what allowed you to have access to this overseas sort of experience. Do you want to explain a bit about how all that came about?
Oh yeah, it was really crazy because at first, like, I was really kind of like giving up with choosing this path, like filmmaking, because like I've heard these stories about people and that constant pressure, like why am I not like achieving this, what people like doing, I looked up to online. But I was just like, the online resources helped me to find this international film festival. So I would just like thought to myself, why not like give it a try and like give it a go, you know? And it was not until when I found this very first film festival that I first competed with, and it was so unbelievable. I still cannot like really believe like the first ever short film was like, it was shot with a smartphone, because this film festival is like a smartphone film festival, and that got me to New Zealand in Wellington.
Oh, so it was a smartphone.
Yeah, it was.
No way.
Yeah, it was part of like the mechanics of the film festivals that you only have to use your smartphone.
Wow.
Because it's a smartphone film festival. And yeah, it was just like, I might as well give it a try. That was the very first short film as well that I made, and I don't have any idea on how to make a short film. So it was just like, yeah, like just do it and film it. And crazily enough, like I was one of the winners. Like they picked it up and flew us to Wellington and like spent like 1 week to have like a 1 week film workshop and do a collaborative film together. And what I really love about it, because like it's not just the film festival itself, because like we have this mission, or like we were together with fellow creative filmmakers from other Southeast Asian countries, where we have to do a collaborative film about promoting the sustainability of the environment in Wellington. So yeah.
Did you, when you saw, or when you first started on your filmmaking journey, did you have any limiting beliefs or sort of fears about pursuing that sort of creative hobby, or like even just in a career sense? Like, did you have any sort of perceptions on what that would look like, or how that would look like, based on maybe how you were brought up? Or
yeah, totally, man. Limiting beliefs are like really there. Yeah, it was like, especially like, I think the limiting beliefs for me was like to think about like it might be really hard for me to, you know, like to survive like with it, like in terms of financially. But it's not just, I just wanted to like crash it out, like to do it like financially, because you just want to do it like because you have a passion for it, but still you have to think about like how you're gonna survive with it. But I think that was like the biggest limiting beliefs for me, like especially like the limited resources. It's living in a small town, you know, in the Philippines, where like creative passion is like not really a thing where like most people pursue it. Like it's totally like I'm taking a path less traveled, you know. So you're saying like in the small community that you were in, it's not really known to have a creative sort of job. What was the sort of reaction of like your parents and your inner circle when you decided to first follow that path? I think at first they were still kind of like worried, or like starting to question me if that's really what I really want to do, because most especially like most of my high school friends, they're choosing the path of like to secure their future, like, oh, I'm gonna take this nursing degree or like do into the business. But I was just so happy with my parents, and it was also hard for me to convince them that I could really make out of career from it. So it was just really trying to believe myself that everything's gonna work out in the end, and luckily it worked out in the end, and I convinced them that I was making like I could somehow make a career out of the passion that I chose, you know. But it took me like several years to like really convince them that I could really make out of career, while at the same time pursuing what really my heart desire, you know, like to tell that stories.
It can be so hard, man. Like I studied film at university, but a lot of the reason I studied film was actually just out of pressure of feeling like I had to do university. Luckily, it was a creative like degree, so I think I had that behind my belt. But like, there definitely is, at least in Australia, like there definitely is this sort of like, I guess, romanticized idea of going to university, getting like a secure job. And I am grateful that I did it, but like I think it definitely would be challenging to pursue something without necessarily going through an institution and feeling that pressure of needing to actually be successful.
True. Yeah.
And like, you mentioned to me earlier, and I think it's a really amazing story that I would love for you to share, but like about how now you're in a place where your community that originally didn't know that that was even like a possible job are now creating like their own like local film festivals, sort of inspired from you because you made it. Your community are proud of you, and I think that's just like the most beautiful thing because I'm doing things with filmmaking, but like my like local town that I grew up in, they don't care. Like they don't really care. Maybe my high school would care what I do, but like I just think it's so beautiful that that's happening. So did you want to like maybe talk a bit about what actually happened as soon as you started moving and people started seeing what you're doing?
Yeah, even me, I still couldn't believe that. Like because before I was just doing because like it's what my passion is, and then I just couldn't believe like as time passed by, the more I share my work online, like I share my work through my small community, like in a small province in the Philippines. People just started to appreciate my work. People started to, you know, like to know about like there's such thing filmmaking, like people doing like filmmaking and doing this short films, like telling stories of these people. And then and then it was just so crazy as well because like regularly I still keep getting these messages from this aspiring creatives in different towns in my province where like they're telling me, oh, it really inspired me, like I cannot believe that it's possible for us to like pursue this career, you know, this whole filmmaking thing, and we could see you like
wow.
you're putting your work in like different international film festivals. Just to think about it, like it would be impossible for us to think about like you're just in a small town in the Philippines and how are you doing that, and getting this inspiring messages of these people like telling me that I really inspire them, that to let them pursue the same passion that I'm doing, and it's just really that sense of fulfilling, you know, like I just couldn't believe like it, like to put it. And then I could see, and now I'm starting this small community together with some of the high school friends that I went with. We're slowly launching this online community for different creatives and artists in my community, the next generation of creative artists that I've been working for like almost 3 years now. So we're just it's just so crazy that how am I just by pursuing my passion, I found this fellow passionate people who was willing to put in the work to really encourage and, you know, like give motivation to this young generation to just put themselves out there and you pursue like different creative passion.
Yeah, and since having like that success with festivals and whatnot, how has your so you're obviously away from your the community you grew up in. What's changed within the community since having had those things happen? Like, have they started doing things differently? Have they started introducing new things?
Yeah, with the community, it started like they started to find this safe place to share their work. Like they're not too scared anymore to put themselves like to put their work out there. Especially like it can be really challenging, and you know that scary feeling like. Being scared of having criticized like your work, like you're pretty shy like to put yourself out there because you're still thinking about what would other people think. Oh, this is not too good to be put online. But having this online community, we're slowly building this online community. Like we're giving it a safe platform where they just could freely share their work no matter what other people think about it. Just like a safe place to put their work out there. And it's just I think it's just like a slow change, a good change for them to really encourage them to just put themselves out there and just learn along the way.
I think that's so important what you said there, because I think oftentimes even with this podcast, like it's all about finding out ways to overcome limiting beliefs so you can pursue your dreams with like a more empowered mindset. And all this sort of talk, I feel like creates this sort of almost overwhelming feeling of needing to be successful. But it's actually not about accomplishing a particular thing or like getting to a certain place. It's actually just about living the life you want to live. And in your case, and in a lot of people in your community's case, it's actually just about sharing art, expressing yourself, and just having a community of people to do that with who just like love art. Because I think there's so much emphasis on like obviously like festivals and like creating work so that you can get to a certain place. But I think the most beautiful part about the creative industry is just the ability to create. And I think it's really beautiful that you've been able to start something like that as well. How has the town that you grew up with, how has that town sort of supported you since you've sort of gone on your journey with filmmaking?
I think the amount of support that they've given me was like so unbelievable because whenever like they say like, I don't know how to say it, like the pride, like they kind of like the way they shown support to me, like my town especially, it's like they're just being so proud, like especially when I always like bring the name of my town in the International Film Festival. This short film entry from St. Bernard in Southern Leyte in the Philippines. It's just like that sense of like they're proud that our small town is like being put like in a name in like international settings, you know, and the amount of support that being invited to like a local radio station, like being featured in like in a newspaper in my province. It's so unbelievable, like the massive support that they've given me. And yeah, the more they've like given like the support to me, the more I was really inspired and motivated to do more of it, because it's not just, I'm just not doing with this passion for myself. I'm doing it like to inspire other people, to inspire this creative artist who's just like waiting to put their self out there, you know? And it's just really crazy to think about it.
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful,
I just can't believe,
It's so cool. Okay, we're going into the juicy stuff now. So I think a lot of creatives, particularly in like photography, filmmaking, but I'm sure in all other creative industries, and for myself personally, I experience a lot of like creative anxiety. And I think as well, because I have to do a lot of creative work for work, I find that whenever I enter a space where I have to be creative for my own passion, I get very anxious because I'm so used to filming in this very particular way that's very like, you know, more for business, but then creatively it almost drains me quite a bit. And I was just wondering, do you experience any like just anxiety in life, or like any struggles that you feel really set you back from being able to live the most fulfilled you can?
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. Like I could relate to what you say, like the creative anxiety, especially this passion that we are taking, you know, like creative anxiety is pretty much really there. And yeah, I feel like especially like how in social media it's being portrayed today, like it can be really toxic. Like with the passion that we really have, we chose, like we cannot like avoid being in a social media, like to put our work out there, and then seeing this online creators or like this inspiring creators or like filmmakers that I look up to, like putting their self out there, it put me a lot of pressure and anxiety. Like
massive.
I was telling myself like I'm doing as much effort that myself could really give, but why I'm not like getting this certain accomplishment or success with it people that I look up to. Like it's just like the constant pressure and anxiety, you know, like it could get really toxic as well. Like just trying to compare yourself. The comparison is really a thief for your creativity, you know. Yeah,
100%. Like I find with myself, like even the last 4 months I've been off Instagram completely because I don't know, and like I feel actually quite a bit of shame about it, because it's like I shouldn't be letting social media get to me that much, but literally I find that whenever I'm on Instagram I literally compare myself so much. Like I'll see people's work and I'm really inspired by it, but then it gets to a point very quickly where I get anxious because I'm like, dude, why aren't I making work like that? And like, you know, I'll like see stuff that's really cool, and then I really look internally and I go, man, I feel like I'm not making progress and whatnot. And it's just such a, and you know what, I wouldn't even necessarily blame social media for like that. Like, yes, it's there and it's the reason why I feel the way I do, but I also like, it's also shown me that there's something within me that needs some fixing as well. Because it's like, I shouldn't be making those comparisons. I should be inspired by seeing people share their work. But then I also think the reason why people do creative things sometimes has been sort of screwed up a little bit. Like for me, I love shooting horizontal, for example. Like I love shooting landscape. It is like, just the way you frame things and whatnot, it's just so much more convenient. It's so much, I feel like I can make a more cinematic looking shot. But now with things being like a phone, it's a lot more difficult to do that. And I find that a lot of the time now I'm shooting portrait for work because everyone needs promo for Instagram. Like that's like pretty much my whole income. And yeah, it's just really fascinating now. And I feel like a lot of people now create content for the purpose of blowing up on Instagram, which is like, I'm sort of waffling a little bit. I'm trying to find a good point within this. But I think why you inspire me a lot is that you have really just stuck to your craft. I think you mainly shoot landscape still, right?
Yeah.
Like that's because for you, it's important to create work that you can be proud of and that you can sort of put out there. If you don't mind, do you mind me asking, do you sort of struggle with any particular like mental health that sort of weighs you down creatively or just in life in general, and like, yeah, and sort of paint a picture on like what the main struggles in your life have been?
Yeah, I think, I could still really say that even up until now, I'm still really struggling with my mental health, especially with, I'm struggling, I feel like there are some days it's just like, I just feel lost. Like I'm trying to find that sense of purpose. Like if it started questioning myself, if this is the thing that I really want to be doing, and you know, like the constant pressure and seeing these people like doing their own thing and achieving things and stuff like that. It's like it's just getting my mental health is like taking a toll on that. Like, you know, like. And yeah, and the constant pressure of like, especially that I moved to another country, like a total different culture and lifestyle, and I always feel like I'm starting from scratch. I always feel like, why am I doing this? Like, I left pretty much my entire career back home, which I feel like I was really kind of to the point where I could say like, I'm successful, like I'm so happy doing it, and now I moved to another country where I don't know anyone. It's so hard to find this fellow creatives, so like I get surrounded with for myself, and then you also need to kind of like settle in with a new culture, and it's just basically like that feeling of constant pressure, and it's taking a toll on my mental health. Like sometimes I started to question things, and I'm almost on the verge of like thinking like, what if I'm just gonna try completely different route because I just want to secure my future, and it's just like every day, and then I still try to really find the best way that as much as I could to find these people like to get surrounded with that, you know, kind of like in sync with the mindset, you know, this fellow creatives that would also inspire you, like motivate you. And I think it's really a good thing to really get surrounded with people like, especially with like you've been also inspiring with me, like seeing your work, and then you've been motivating me as well through my lowest days. And then it's just get surrounded with people might really help with my mental health as well.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing so vulnerably. You are so right, and I was actually I'm just double checking the time. On the last podcast with Nisha, we were talking about how it can be so hard, like that realization that you might not be on the right path. Like I remember, I think it was second year of uni, I was studying film, and that was such a beautiful year for film, but also for me, it was such a stressful year because I think the reality of filmmaking is that it can get very stressful at times, particularly when you're making short films and whatnot. And I remember having some very intense experiences with filmmaking throughout that year that almost made me want to quit. Like fully, I was like, I don't want to do this. This is like, if this is what filmmaking is, it is not for me. And it sucks, especially because if you spend your whole like years working on your craft, working on your passion, getting really good at it, and then suddenly realizing, crap, maybe this isn't for me anymore. As humans, I really believe like we often try and cling on to as much ground as possible. And what I mean by that is like almost like control. I think as humans, it's very natural for us to crave stability a lot of the time. And a part of having that stability is having something that we're masterful at, or something that we really love doing. And like for us, it's filmmaking, right? And yeah, to get to a place, like I definitely experienced this myself, where I was questioning whether I even wanted to do filmmaking. And it's like, it's hard, dude, because like the idea of starting something new is terrifying when you've already worked so much. And that's why I find that oftentimes people will just settle for something that they've been doing for years because they've already set themselves up in that way, you know?
Yeah.
But I actually think like the best and boldest step that anyone can take is realizing that they don't want to do something anymore, but then leaning into that anyway, despite I'm just noticing all the flies. You can swoop them away, man. Don't worry about it. Don't let them get you. But no, seriously, like, and for me, I sort of went through that last year. Like, I realized that filmmaking for me actually started from a place that was very hurt.
Yeah.
Because growing up, like, I got bullied quite a lot, and you know, I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel heard in this world, and filmmaking was like a tool for me to actually be seen and be heard, which is beautiful, but it meant that it started from a place where I was just trying to get validation from others, and I really feel like that eventually took a toll on me, because I realized that there was more to it than that. Like, I love people, and I love sort of connecting people and whatnot, and so realizing that was hard, because then I almost had a point where I was like, do I give up on filmmaking? But then I sort of realized over time, no, it's a gift that I have, and like, it's a beautiful resource to use to connect people, but it's not everything. What has it been like for you moving to a whole new country with a whole different culture, on top of that going through this sort of crisis about your passions and what you want to do, and where are you at now with all of that?
Oh, I think like it's true. I could really say, I would not really deny that. Like, to be honest, I'm still really struggling a lot, even though I've really been moving there like for almost 2 years now.
Yep.
Like, I was still really quite struggling to settle in and like try to find my voice and try to put myself in this new country, you know, like everything is just like the idea of like settling in with while juggling of like going to uni, trying to finish your degree, and like trying to find these people whom you want to collaborate with, like try to surround yourself with creatives, and everything's just taking a toll on me. But what I really find as well, like, I feel like I always try to tell myself that what if like everything that's happening right now would just be worth it in the end. I always try to still try my best to put my mind in like in a mindset that everything might just be happening for a reason, you know, everything will be worth it. All the sacrifices that I've done, like especially coming from a family-oriented family, it was really hard for me. I was really struggling my first 6 months. Just there are some nights that I was just like randomly crying because like I'm missing my family. I'm missing like the everyday life of just being there with your family, you know, living that kind of like very close-knit community. And yeah, but I always just try to think of myself, try to remind myself that I'm not just doing it for myself, I'm doing it for my family back home, especially like coming from a Filipino culture. You really have to help and like get surrounded and always to think about your family. And yeah, just always thinking about my mother, my mom, and my grandparents and my brothers. Just like I was just thinking about like I'm not just doing it for myself, I'm doing it for my family back home, that I want to make them proud of myself one day. And yeah, just always trying to remind myself that everything might just be worth it in the end, you know.
Oh, beautiful, man. I feel like what you just shared is actually really important, and this is something that I've sort of been realizing is a value of mine, and particularly with social media and podcasts in particular. So from my experience, like I've always been quite occasionally triggered from podcasts, which is like weird to admit because I'm doing one now. It's a little hypocritical, but I think the reason is like what I started noticing with podcast culture is it kind of became a platform for people to obviously express themselves, and I think that's a really beautiful element of it. But also I found that there was a lot of projection with podcast culture. I think what it did is it sort of gave a platform for people to be very like motivational and whatnot. But I found that oftentimes that motivation, that inspiration, and that the way people speak is very like, this is how you live a better life and whatnot. And for me personally, like I've always been very like, I think it's so important to have compassion, because every single person has different intentions for living their life. And this is the crazy thing. And so I often say this to people, and it's actually kind of weird saying this publicly because it might be a bit controversial, but I almost don't believe in giving advice. I don't like the idea about advice because it almost, to me, implies that people, like there is a way people should live. It's like my advice to you, whereas I actually prefer the word perspective, because I feel like the best thing for people is to be able to make an empowered choice based on information that they've got, if that makes sense. So I feel like a lot of the times we try and force these like ideas of like how people should live their life, but really we're missing the whole context of like why they want to live. Some people want to live purely to be happy, and that's beautiful. I'm one of those people. Some people want to live to serve, like to literally just like be a soldier for the planet, and some people want to live like for their family. Like everyone has different intentions, and I feel like the way we live our life is very dependent on like the reason we want to live, for example. And in your case, especially growing up in the Philippines and having that culture, in Filipino culture, family is everything, and that's not like the same in all parts of the world. And so for you, I think it's really beautiful, and it's really important to talk about the fact that family plays such a big part in what you do, because a lot of people, especially like in podcast culture, like I mentioned, will be like, oh, like do things for yourself. Like people will literally stand there on a microphone and be like, no, it's only about you. Like you have to focus on you. And that's beautiful if that's like a person's values is to be happy and to be independent. Whereas when it's more about family, you have to sort of take that into consideration. And so I love that you spoke on the idea that family is a big motivating factor for you. And I guess, oh my God, I had a question and it just left my brain. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, to like talk us through why family is super important to you and how it sort of plays into why you do what you do.
Oh yeah, because I feel like I think it's just like deeply rooted to you when you were born, especially in this kind of culture. Like I grew up just being surrounded with my mom, like her constant unending love and care, like the way how he raised me to who I am today.
Yep.
It's just like have become like so much big part and huge impact in my life. And family is pretty much just everything, because I would not really imagine myself where I'm gonna be at or who I'm gonna be, what I am today without family, because they've been there like since day one, supporting me, like when I started my passion, and then they've been there through my lowest days, and they've just always been pretty much one of the main reasons why, like my main motivation why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Like whenever I'm feeling down, like whenever just I think about my family, that I'm doing this for them, it's just like constantly just give me that sense of like energy, that specific energy that, you know, like it really motivates me more, like to strive more and like to be tougher next time whenever like these lowest days and come crashing you know, like totally, like family is really everything.
Oh yeah. Man, that's so beautiful. I find that with myself, like sometimes, like I'm really close with my family, but I think like I've got a weird relationship where I'm actually quite okay being by myself. Like I moved cities and I don't really get that homesick. But what I do find is like being an adult, like you sort of realize how much your family did for you when you were younger. And so like a big motivating factor for me is like trying to be successful just so I can like make them live the rest of their life as happy as possible. And it's like a really beautiful motivator, but also can be quite like tricky sometimes, because the whole point of like mum and dad is to spoil you, is to like support you, and they don't expect it at all. And I'm sort of like trying to like develop a new sort of mindset with it, because for the longest time I kept feeling like I owe them something, like I owe my family, and I want to like retire them, and I want them just to live the rest of their life happy. But then I actually was speaking to my I think it was my auntie recently, or my cousin, one of them, and they said something really beautiful that changed my mind forever. And they said that the way that they think about it is that they pass it down to their children. And that actually like shocked me, because I was like, man, for the longest time, I'm like trying to build my career up so that I can afford to like retire my parents. But then it's like, what if I just accept that they were just unconditionally loving to me, and I just passed that love down to my children? That was just like the most beautiful thing ever. And so I really appreciate your reflection on how family is to you. And that's also why I love travel. And I think maybe this is a topic we can go down, because I think travel is so freaking important, and like experiencing different cultures and just understanding that there's more to the world than what we understand in our own culture. And like, I'm gonna put this stereotype out there just so that it's a building block for our discussion. So in America, now just full disclosure, I don't believe in this stereotype, but it definitely is a thing people say. Americans, oftentimes they'll say that they're very enclosed in their bubble because a lot of them don't travel outwards. And so their whole perception of the world very much revolves around their experience in America. And to be honest, this same principle applies to anyone who lives in their own country. It's not just Americans, but I think the reason I brought it up is because people will often stick this stereotype that Americans are very like arrogant or whatever, which I don't believe in. Full disclosure, don't roast me. But I think it's really important to travel because when I went to the Philippines for the U Effect, the biggest sort of thing that shocked me was the generosity and the family culture there. Like, the Philippines is it's like a third world country kind of, right? In some ways, there's a lot of poverty over there, right? True. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I've never met a community of people that are so generous, and I just think that's really incredible considering that they don't have much, and that really made me reflect on my life and the generosity that I can give to people. And so I guess I'm just curious, like, how has moving to a whole new country, New Zealand being like a Western country, how has that affected your mindset and helped you overcome limiting beliefs that you've had in the past?
Yeah, I think like since moving to a new country, I would say like it's a two ways of like, it has opened me with a lot of perspective, both like good things and bad things. And there's also like certain things since moving to a new country like New Zealand that I would not have thought that it would help me like open lots of new perspectives in life. Like there's like certain things that I've seen and I've observed that it was not like what we used to like doing in the Philippines, that I could also like somehow bring back when I go home to my home country. That's like, maybe that's why we're not achieving or like doing this kind of thing or achieving this kind of thing because we're doing it the wrong way. Like, so there's just certain things of like different perspective that has opened me. It has opened me an eye on like, since moving to a new country, like for example of like having that like there's one thing that I've seen, like, you know, when there's like certain occasions like in New Zealand, I've seen like not a lot of people will like making this grand and like bungacious like type of occasions, but back home we have this kind of like, it has been rooted in our culture. Like if you even just like a small birthdays and like weddings, I'm not like doing like comparison thing, but I'm just telling this from my own experience, from my own perspective, that maybe that's why like maybe people were like, yeah, it's just like we put so much effort, like spend a lot of money when like in these certain occasions, but since I've been to New Zealand, it's like there's just like simple wedding or like birthdays. There's just like simply like just like privately like celebrating with your own family, like the old clothes.
Right. So the Philippines sort of make big deal out of weddings where it's sort of like expected that you invite lots of people and you spend like a lot of money. Is that sort of the vibe?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Interesting.
Some people. Yeah, but I'm not like stereotyping like generally, but it's kind of like very common. Like you really have to spend like this X amount of money for this certain wedding because you want to kind of like invite this like lots of people to attend and then go to this certain venue and like prepare this like lots of different foods and stuff. So like certainly it's like a totally big difference when it comes, especially in weddings.
Interesting. So how is going to New Zealand then changed some of your old habits from when you were in the Philippines?
I think I would generally say that have to think more about before buying stuff, like, you know, like the way like the spending money is, especially given with the situation like the crisis going on, it's not just like in one country like happening around. It gives me so much more to think about, like not just thinking about like when you're buying stuff or when you're spending on something, you're not just thinking about the present, but you have to think about how you could secure in the future. Like, you know, you really have to think twice if it's really worth like possessing this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest thing that I've really learned about the New Zealand culture, like, you know.
I think like a beautiful reflection that this sort of gives is that I think, and I say this a lot, particularly in this podcast, but like I think our existence as humans is very much dependent on our environment and where we grow up and the people around us and ultimately the conditioning of everything that's happening. And it really is something that I just feel like we're often so unaware of. And I think there's a lot of power in sort of learning where all that comes from, because I think what that actually allows you to do is it allows you to sort of actually develop, no, who are you really? Who do you want to be? And that's why I also think traveling is such a beautiful thing that everyone should like do if they can, because I think through experiencing different cultures, and like for example for you, like you went to New Zealand, you realized that they have healthier spending habits in certain areas, and that made you sort of realize, oh, I didn't realize like that culture, like my own culture influenced me that much. And I've like personally definitely experienced that going to different countries as well, and it really humbled me, and it actually helped me find who I am at my core. And the whole like purpose behind the U effect is sort of finding out ways we can become the most authentic version of ourselves possible, right? And that's why I think it's really inspiring that you decided to make the move to New Zealand, and you often put yourselves in situations of discomfort. Because I think discomfort, and this is like why we both love Yes Theory and connect with them so much, is because getting out of your comfort zone allows you to find yourself more. It allows you to shed the layers of who you once were and step into this new version of yourself where you feel empowered because you've actually discovered who you are. You're not being the person that the world tells you who you are. You are discovering that for yourself. And the reason why this podcast is called The Pursuit of Possible is it's finding out ways we can sort of discover parts of ourselves and discover this possibility of who we can become. So seagulls just sort of pitched up on this little rock here. It's distracted me. So let's talk about Yes Theory, I think, like, because that's how we connected.
Sure.
And for those of you who don't know, I think we mentioned this through one of the other podcasts we did, but Yes Theory is a YouTube channel that promotes seeking discomfort as a way of growing within your life. And I guess I'd just be curious to ask you, how did you discover Yes Theory, and how did they sort of make you realize what's possible in your own life?
Oh, yeah, it's been like, yeah, I discovered Yes Theory. It was actually by accident when I was just like watching this random videos like online on YouTube. Like they just went on my recommended, and they're just like that. Once I still could remember the exact moment, exact video that I watched was like how they invited this different strangers and put them together in like a mansion, and that kind of like mantra and that philosophy of like getting out of your comfort zone and try to seek discomfort and put yourself in like in this kind of situations, you would not have think about what's in it out there the moment that you take that first step of getting out of your comfort zone. I just love the idea of like the Yes Theory of like always living in like seeking discomfort and like getting out of your comfort zone, and like stranger is just a friend whom you haven't met yet. And yeah, it's just like crazy. And then I think I would say like I'm in a point in my life right now that I'm so grateful for having discovered Yes Theory, because they've inspired me so much, and then they've helped me find these amazing people that I would not have thought that I would met. Like some of the best people that I've met, which like I could call like pretty much almost my brothers now. Like it's just so crazy like how inspiring and how motivating the community is. Like the online community that they've built is just like everything is just crazily kind, and you know it's just so amazing, and just based on the experience of how I met you, and it's so crazy like through Yes Theory, and we are here in the beach like just talking and like inspiring each other and like telling our story. It's just so crazy, and I still wouldn't believe
100%. Dude, community is everything. And like, just for a bit of context, Loyd and I would always support each other's work, even though we'd never met. This is literally like the second day we've met each other. Like it's actually crazy in person. And I remember like there were times where like you would enter film festivals and I would help you like create posters to promote it. And then you would always share my work and like just get it out there. And it's just this beautiful, and what Yes Theory have done with their community is really just mind-blowing, to be honest. Like they've managed to, I have never met a community of such similar like-minded people in one space. And what it does is it actually gives people access to an environment more than anything. And like what we were saying, community is everything, because your environment shapes who you are. And so when you're surrounded by, you know, like-minded people who people that you sort of want to become, that's actually going to allow you to be the person you want to be. And I think that's why, like, you know, it's so inspiring to hear how, like, you discovered yes theory and how because that's actually helped you sort of find yourself, would you say?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. A question I kind of want to start asking people with this podcast, and just because I think vulnerability and authenticity is very an important part of this podcast as well, just to show that, like, we're all going through struggles, we're all on different journeys. And so I guess my question for you is, like, what is your biggest limiting belief right now? It's a bit of an intense question.
Intense question.
Would it make you feel more comfortable if I shared maybe one of mine?
Yeah.
Okay, I actually have to think now. I didn't think this through. I realize it's also gotten a lot brighter, so hopefully the settings are still okay. My biggest limiting belief. Oh, man. You know, it's crazy because I feel like I'm in a space now where I've never believed that things are more possible than I am now. Like, I honestly believe that anything can be achieved, but I would say my own personal limiting belief, or actually, yeah, I know what it is. So it comes up on occasion, but it's that, like, I don't deserve to be loved. Like, I can't be loved, like, particularly in a relationship. And that's something, I can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast, to be honest. But because I've often found myself in situations with people where it just doesn't go well, and often, like, my own sort of wounds come out. And so oftentimes I'll relapse into this sort of mindset that I'm not capable of being loved in, like, a relationship setting because of who I am. But it's so not true. It's just like, it's not. But that's something that often comes up for me because of the experiences that I have and have had. And yeah, so yeah, damn dude, I didn't expect to share like that.
Yeah, and I think I could say, like, coming from my own as well, it's like, I would say that maybe it kind of like relate to what you said as well. My limiting beliefs is that, like, you know, like, always having that feeling of, like, I always want to seek this validation from others as well in different aspects of my life, be it with my creative work or just be it with, like, in general in my life. Like, there are, like, certain days or, like, certain times that I just think, like, why do I always feel like seeking validation for others, where I am like, I could just do, like, without thinking about what other people would think, you know, like, I'm not doing this to please them, you know, like, and it's kind of like really one of the limiting beliefs that I'm really struggling with it, like, I want to kind of, like, change it, of, like, not, like, try to seek this validation for others, because it's kind of like stopped me from doing what I really want, especially in, like, in creative field, you know, like, the moment that you started, like, to do have this, like, seeking validation, it kind of, like, limits you now, like, what possibly you could really do, you know.
Yeah, right, dude, that's so true. So you would say, like, the limiting belief is that you need others' approval to be of value in this world.
Like, seeking for that certain approval.
Man, shit, dude. No, that actually resonates a lot. And I think oftentimes, and this is what I find a lot, I'll tell myself that I don't care about something, but deep down, I care a lot more than I say. And I think it's because oftentimes you almost have to, like, play the role of the person that you want to be. So I think oftentimes we tell ourselves, nah, like, I don't care, like, I'm confident. But, like, deep down, there is a deep-rooted, like, feeling of needing that validation. Yeah, I definitely experience that sometimes too as well. I feel like I've come a long way with it, but yeah, I think it's still there sometimes.
Yeah, I think it still happens, like, every now and then, like, it comes. Yeah.
But I think I think most creatives sort of go through that, to be honest, because it's like, you know, we're making work and we're sharing work. And there's honestly, like, there is no better feeling than sharing your work and people going, like, yeah, like, that's amazing. Because, like, at the end of the day, we create so people can feel. And we want people to feel. But what comes with that is oftentimes we grow this codependency on people's validation. And that's just part of the gig, I think. Anyway, dude, this has been such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for jumping on board. I was so excited, like, hearing that you were going to come to Melbourne. I was like, yes, get him on the podcast, do a This Is Me series with him, which we haven't filmed yet. And what better place to do it?
Yeah, what better place to do it?
Than
Like,
the Great
sharing,
Ocean Road.
this beautiful view and just, like,
Well, thank you so much, bro, for jumping on board. Thank you guys for listening. If you're on Spotify, sorry again for all the waves, but if you're on Spotify, I do recommend coming to YouTube and just seeing where we're at the moment, because man, this is such a beautiful place. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, it's such a pleasure. Yeah,
of course,
it's
bro.
an honor. Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode. I really still suck at outros. Do the thing, follow on Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel, do all that stuff. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pursuit of Possible podcast. If you guys enjoyed, please consider giving us a follow on Spotify or whatever you do on Spotify. I actually have no idea. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on our weekly uploads. See you next time.